The famous hero of ancient Athens was the semi-mythical, semi-historical figure known as Theseus. The ancient Athenians believed that the many valiant acts attributed to him were the catalyst for the emergence of democracy in the Attic city-state, which is considered the birthplace of Greek democracy. He is depicted as Hercules' contemporary, indicating that he was a member of the generation that existed before the Trojan War. According to legend, his valiant battles against terrifying monsters and terrible criminals serve as an allegory for how Theseus overthrew the tyrants, freed the Athenians from terror, and ended the taxing tribute the city had to pay to foreign countries. Aegeus, one of the ancient Athens monarchs, was twice married, but had no heir to the throne despite having two fathers. He thus traveled to consult the renowned Delphic oracle. When the oracle was unable to provide him with a definitive response, he turned to his sage friend Pythias, the king of Troezen in Argolis, for guidance. At a covert nuptial ceremony, Pythias gladly presented his friend Athra, his daughter. Following her night of infidelity with her husband, Athra made the decision to go for a moonlit stroll. This stroll led her through the shallow waters of the sea god. Island of Spheria, which is located on the opposite shore of Poros. She discovered Poseidon, the god of the water and tremors, there. Poseidon tempted Aethra in the midst of the night by the light of the moon. As a result, she became doubly impregnated. Uro, who was fortunate enough to be born with both human and divine traits from the seed of a mortal and a god. It seems that King Aegeus simply needed an heir and no wife. So, after his baby was born, he made the decision to go back to Athens. But before he left, he told Athra to send Theseus to Athens when he was old enough and strong enough to roll aside the boulder and retrieve the proof of his royal pedigree. He had hidden his sword and sandals beneath a massive rock in front of her. With his mother and grandfather looking after him, Theseus grew up in Troezen. The courageous young guy had an intense desire to follow in the footsteps of his hero, Hercules, who had gained notoriety by vanquishing several evildoers and monsters since he was a small child. As soon as Athra guided her kid to the rock that would determine his fate, he effortlessly rolled it away and took out his father's shoes and sword. Pythias counseled his grandson to take the shorter and safer water route to Athens, rather than the roads, which were rife with thieves, as Theseus prepared to embark on his trip towards fate. However, our youthful champion was not going to back down. He had already made the decision to make facing and conquering dangers his lifelong pastime. Thus, he decided to take the perilous land path that circumnavigates the Saronic Gulf, which would soon present him with a plethora of formidable obstacles. Shortly after embarking on his journey, Theseus encountered his first challenge at Epidaurus, a sacred site dedicated to Apollo and Asclepius. Here, he confronted Periphetes, renowned for using an iron club to harm travelers. Having received a description of Periphetes from his grandfather, Theseus swiftly identified him and engaged in a fierce altercation. In a turn of events, Theseus turned the tables on Periphetes, using the scoundrel's own weapon to defeat him. The victorious youth claimed the iron club as a trophy and continued his journey to the Isthmus of Corinth without further hindrance. The residents of the isthmus cautioned Theseus about another peril. Cyrus, or Sinis, the bandit overseeing the passage from Corinth to Athens, had an unconventional approach to dealing with travelers. Cyrus would bind his hapless victims between two trees, bending them to the ground and then releasing them suddenly. This impromptu catapult would launch the victims into the air, resulting in fatal falls. Our hero swiftly dispatched this threat as well. Seizing the opportunity, Theseus then engaged in a regrettable act, violating Cirrus's daughter, Perigune, who later bore him a son, Melanippus. Continuing his journey, Theseus faced his next challenge near Megare's borders. There, he encountered the malevolent bandit Siren, who forced travelers to wash his feet with their backs turned to the sea. This arrangement allowed him to kick them into the waters below, where they would become prey to a sea monster or a giant turtle. In a twist of fate, the villain Siren ended up being devoured by the sea monster. A bit further from Eleusis, along the banks of the river Cephissus, Theseus confronted his final trial on the road to Athens. The last adversary was the giant Procrustes, known as the Stretcher. This seemingly friendly villain had a unique way of expressing hospitality, offering two iron beds, one excessively long and the other too short. He would present the short bed to tall travelers, accommodating them by amputating their limbs to fit the bed comfortably. Similarly, the unfortunate short individuals placed in the lengthy bed experienced a gruesome fate. Their limbs were forcibly extended to achieve a proper fit, resulting in agonizing deaths as their limbs were torn off. Theseus administered the same fate to the Stretcher, with the giant Procrustes meeting his demise in the undersized bed, mirroring the unfortunate end of his previous victims. Today, the phrase "the Procrustean bed" is synonymous with this merciless practice. Upon reaching Athens without encountering further challenges, Theseus opted to postpone his meeting with his father, Aegeus, until he familiarized himself with the surroundings. Demonstrating his intelligence and resilience, the astute hero conducted research on the city and its king. To his dismay, he discovered troubling information, learning that King Aegeus was under the malevolent influence of the sorceress Medea. When Theseus finally met his father, he discreetly concealed the sword and sandals, symbols of his parentage. Despite this precaution, Medea, using her occult abilities, discerned the true identity of the enigmatic young newcomer. The sorceress, displeased by the prospect of Theseus inheriting the throne instead of her son Midas, orchestrated a plan to manipulate the elderly king's perception of the stranger. She innocently proposed sending the youth to capture the menacing Marathonian bull, intending to dispose of him without resorting to murder, her usual method in such situations. The suggestion of capturing the Marathonian bull rejuvenated Theseus, who was growing bored without real challenges. During his journey to Marathon, he found refuge from a storm in the humble abode of an elderly woman named Hecale. Grateful for her hospitality, Theseus promised to make a sacrifice to Zeus if he succeeded in capturing the bull. Despite the ease with which he captured the bull, Hecale had passed away by the time Theseus returned. In tribute to her kindness, he named a region in Attica Hecale, a designation that persists today as Hecale, Ekale in modern Greek, an upscale area north of Athens near Kaphissia. Upon returning to Athens with the slain Marathon bull, Aegeus, influenced by Medea, grew even more suspicious of Theseus, reluctantly agreeing to the sorceress's plan. Embarking on a new chapter of his adventures, Theseus discovered that Athens faced a profound tragedy. Due to a long-standing war and the Athenians' past actions, King Minotaur of Crete demanded a brutal tribute from Athens' 7 boys and 7 maidens of noble birth sent every 9 years to be devoured by the fearsome Minotaur, a monstrous creature dwelling in the labyrinth. This vengeful demand stemmed from the Cretans seeking retribution for the murder of Androgenes, the younger son of the Cretan king, by the Athenians. Undeterred by his father's objections, Theseus insisted on participating in the perilous mission during the third tribute. Prior to setting sail, he made a solemn promise to King Aegeus that, if successful, the returning ship would display white sails instead of the customary black ones. Before embarking on this hazardous journey, Theseus took prudent measures. Seeking guidance from an oracle, he was advised to choose Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, as his patroness. Following the oracle's counsel, he made the necessary sacrifices to the goddess, initiating his fateful journey to confront the menacing Minotaur. The love affair with Ariadne, fact or deception? Upon meeting King Minos at the palace, Ariadne, the daughter of the Cretan king, fell deeply in love with Theseus under the influence of Aphrodite. Ariadne managed a clandestine meeting with the noble youth, where they pledged eternal love and fidelity. She provided him with a sharp sword to slay the Minotaur and a skein of thread to navigate the labyrinth. Following Ariadne's guidance, Theseus secured the thread at the labyrinth's entrance, successfully confronting and defeating the Minotaur. Reuniting with Ariadne at the labyrinth's exit, the young lovers sailed to Athens, fulfilling Theseus's promise to his father. However, their joy was short-lived. At Naxos, Theseus dreamt of Dionysus, the wine god, warning him of impending misfortunes if he did not abandon Ariadne, who was destined to be the god's bride. Respecting the gods, Theseus tearfully parted ways with Ariadne, setting sail to Athens. Different versions suggest either genuine love or a deceptive ploy by Theseus to exploit Ariadne's aid. Regardless, after being abandoned, Dionysus married Ariadne and took her to Mount Olympus, becoming the king of Athens. Upon his return, Theseus assumed the throne of Athens, earning the admiration of its citizens. He unified disparate communities, fostering a prosperous and centrally administered state. Theseus prioritized agriculture and commerce, transforming Athens into a thriving maritime port. He initiated the Isthmian Games and various festivals, including the Panthea dedicated to goddess Athena. The Amazon Antigone, his first wife. During a voyage, Theseus encountered the Amazons, and his attraction to Antigone led to her abduction. Making her his queen, Antigone bore him a son, Hippolytus. The Amazons retaliated with an attack on Athens, leading to a fierce battle. Despite Antigone's bravery in supporting Theseus, she perished in the conflict. Friendship with Prithous. The next significant chapter involved Theseus' friendship with Prithous, the prince of the Lapiths. After a test of admiration, they swore eternal friendship and participated in renowned hunts and battles, including the Caledonian boar hunt and the conflict against the centaurs. This heroic alliance restored the honor of their women during a tumultuous event at Prithous' wedding feast. The abduction of Helen. Later, the two friends decided to collaborate in abducting daughters of Zeus. Theseus chose Helen, who would later be renowned as Helen of Troy. Despite Helen being only 9 years old at the time, Theseus was undeterred, intending to keep her safe until she reached marriageable age. The duo successfully kidnapped Helen, leaving her in the protective care of Theseus's mother, Athra, in Troezen. However, Helen's brothers, Castor and Pollux, intervened, rescuing her and returning her to Sparta, their homeland. Phaedra, his second wife. Following the death of his Amazonian wife, Antigone, Theseus married Phaedra, Ariadne's sister, with whom he had a tragic fate. Phaedra, bearing 2 sons for Theseus, Demophon and Acamas, became entangled in a complex web of relationships. Meanwhile, Theseus's son from Antigone, Hippolytus, chose to devote himself to Artemis at the age of 20, defying the path chosen by his father. Incensed by this, Aphrodite sought revenge, causing Phaedra to fall desperately in love with her stepson. When Hippolytus rejected her advances, Phaedra, in despair, took her own life, but not before leaving a suicide note falsely accusing Hippolytus of rape and dishonor. Outraged, Theseus prayed to Poseidon, one of his fathers, to punish Hippolytus. Poseidon sent a monster that frightened the horses, leading to a tragic accident that claimed Hippolytus's life. This profound tragedy has inspired numerous authors and artists over the centuries. From Euripides' ancient play Hippolytus to various movies and plays based on the story.